I remember next to nothing about the first couple of weeks. Just shoveling hot top and tamping it down and walking along behind the truck with my head down until the truck stopped at the next pothole. Sometimes we'd work on the strip and I'd hear the sound of jackpot bells ringing in the casino. Sometimes I'd think the bells were just ringing in my head. I'd look up and I'd see Harvey Blocker looking at me with that odd look of compassion, his face shimmering in the heat baking off the road. And sometimes I'd look over at Tinker, sitting under the canvas parasol which covered the cab of his dozer, and Tinker would hold up my great-granddad's watch and swing it on the chain so it kicked off sun flashes. The big struggle was not to faint, to hold on to consciousness no matter what. All through June I held on, and the first week of July, and then Blocker sat down next to me one lunch hour while I was eating a sandwich with one shaking hand. I shook sometimes until 10 at night. It was the heat. It was either a shake or faint, and when I thought that of Dolan I somehow managed to keep shaking. "You still ain't strong, Bubba," he said. "No," I said, "but like the man said, you should have seen the materials I had to start with. I keep expecting to turn around and see you passed out in the middle of the roadbed, and you keep not doing it. But you gonna." "No, I'm not." "Yes, you are. If you stay behind that truck with the shovel, you gonna." "No." "Hottest part of the summer's still coming on, Bubba. Tink calls it cookie sheet weather." "I'll be fine." He pulled something out of his pocket. It was my great-granddad's watch. Tossed it in my lap. "Take this fucking thing," he said, disgusted. "I don't want it. You made a deal with me. I'm calling it off. If you fire me, I'll take you to arbitration," I said. "You signed my form." "I ain't firing you," he said, and looked away. "I'm going to have Tink teach you how to run a front-end loader." I looked at him for a long time, not knowing what to say. My third-grade classroom, so cool and pleasant, had never seemed so far away. And I still didn't have the slightest idea of how a man like Blocker thought, or what he meant when he said the things he said. I knew that he admired me and held me in contempt the same time, but I had no idea how he felt either way. "And you don't need to care, darling," Elizabeth spoke up suddenly inside my head. "Dolan is your business. Remember Dolan." "Why do you want to do that?" I asked at last. He looked back at me then, and I saw he was both furious and amused, but the fury was the emotion on top, I think. "What is it with you, Bubba? What do you think I am?" You think I want to kill you for your fucking watch? Is that what you think?" "I'm sorry." "Yeah, you are. Sorriest little motherfucker I ever saw." I put my great-granddad's watch away. "You ain't never going to be strong, Bubba. Some people and plants take hold in the sun. Some wither up and die. You dying. You know you are, and you still won't move into the shade. Why? Why you pulling this crap on your system?" "I've got my reasons." "Yeah, I bet you do. And God help anyone who gets in your way." He got up and walked off. Tinker came over, grinning. "You think you can learn to run a front-end loader?" "I think so," I said. "I think so, too," he said. "Old Blockhead there likes you. You just don't know how to say so. Noticed?" Tink laughed. "Tough little motherfucker, ain't you?" "I hope so," I said. I spent the rest of the summer driving a front-end loader, and when I went back to school that fall, almost as black as Tink himself, the other teachers stopped laughing at me. Sometimes they looked at me out of the corners of their eyes as I passed, but they had stopped laughing. "I've got my reasons." That's what I told him. And I did. I did not spend that season in hell just on a whim. I had to get in shape, you see. Preparing to dig a grave for a man or a woman may not require such drastic measures. But it was not just a man or a woman I had in mind. It was that damn Cadillac I meant to bury. By April of the following year I was on the State Highway Commission's mailing list. Every month I received a bulletin called Nevada Road Signs. I skimmed through most of the material, which concerned itself with pending highway improvement bills, road equipment that had been bought and sold, state legislature actions on such subjects as sand dune control and new anti-erosion techniques. What I was interested in was always on the last page or two of the bulletin. This section, simply titled The Calendar, listed the dates and sites of road work on each coming month. I was especially interested in sites and dates followed by a simple four-letter abbreviation, RPAV. This stood for repaving, and my experience on Harvey Blocker's crew had showed me that these were the operations which most frequently called for detours, but not always. No, indeed. Closing a section of road is a step the Highway Commission never takes unless there is no other choice. But sooner or later, I thought, those 4 letters might spell the end for Dolan. Just 4 letters. But there were times when I saw them in my dreams. RPAV. Not that it would be easy, or perhaps even soon. I knew I might have to wait for years, and that someone else might get to Dolan in the meantime. He was an evil man, and evil men live dangerous lives. 4 loosely related vectors would have to come together, like a rare conjunction of the planets. Travel for Dolan, vacation time for me, a national holiday, and a 3-day weekend. Years maybe, or maybe never. But I felt a kind of serenity, a surety that it would happen, and that when it did, I would be prepared. And eventually, it did. Not that summer, not that fall, and not even the following spring. June of last year, I opened Nevada road signs and saw this on the calendar. July 1st through July 22nd. US 71 miles 440 through 472 West Bend, Repav. Hands shaking, I paged through the desk on my calendar to July and saw that July 4th fell on a Monday. So here were 3 of the 4 vectors, for surely there would be a detour somewhere in the middle of such an expensive repaving job. But Dolan, what about Dolan? What about the 4th vector? 3 times before I could remember him going to LA during the week of the 4th of July, a week which is one of the few slow ones in Las Vegas. I could remember 3 other times when he had gone somewhere else, once to New York, once to Miami, and once all the way to London, and a 4th time when he had simply stayed in Vegas. If he went. Was there a way I could find out? I thought on this long and hard, but 2 visions kept intruding. In the first, I saw Dolan's Cadillac speeding west towards LA, along US 71 at dusk, casting a long shadow behind it. I saw it passing detour ahead signs, the last of them warning CB owners to turn off their radios. I saw the Cadillac passing abandoned road equipment, bulldozers, graders, and front-end loaders. Abandoned not just because it was after knockoff time, but because it was the weekend, a 3-day weekend. In the second vision, everything was the same except the detour signs were gone. And they were gone because I had taken them down. It was on the last day of school when I suddenly realized how I might be able to find out. I had been nearly drowsing. My mind was a million miles away from both school and Dolan when I suddenly sat bolt upright, knocking a vase on the side of my desk. It contained some pretty flowers my students had bought me as an end of the school present. To the floor, where it shattered. Several of my students, who had also been drowsing, also sat bolt upright. Perhaps something in my face scared one of them, because a little boy named Timmy Urich burst into tears and I had to soothe him. Sheets, I thought, comforting Timmy. Sheets and pillowcases and bedding and silverware. The rugs, the grounds. Everything has to look just so. He'll want everything just so. Of course, having things just so was just as much a part of Dolan as his Cadillac. I began to smile, and Timmy Urich smiled back, but it wasn't Timmy I was smiling at. I was smiling at Elizabeth. School finished on June 10th that year. 12 days later, I flew into Los Angeles. I rented a car and checked into some cheap hotel I had used on other occasions. On each of the next 3 days, I drove into the Hollywood Hills and mounted a watch on Dolan's house. It could not be a constant watch that would have been noticed. The rich hire people to notice interlopers, because all too often they turn out to be dangerous, like me.